A while ago, I did a video on infirmity, and I mentioned sin guilt. So I wanted to make sure that everyone understood what sin guilt was. Hi, I'm Hoshea from HOIO Contact, Ohio, and today we're going to talk about sin guilt. When we're dealing with sin guilt, we're talking about a guilty feeling from sinning. Sin guilt is exactly what it is. It's a guilty feeling from sinning. Now, your conscience has told you that you did something wrong, or your ruach, your spirit, has told you that you've done something wrong. The negative thing about sin guilt is if it goes unchecked, that means if you do not repent, change, cross over, transition, you will remain in a status of sin guiltiness. If that's even a word. You'll go from guiltiness to condemnation, and we know that those who are in Christ Yeshua do not have any condemnation. You can have an issue of shame. You won't be able to hold your head up tall. You won't be able to look people in the eyes. You'll have an issue of pride. There's nothing that anyone can tell you. You become stony heart because you never crossed over, you never transitioned, you never repented of the thing that you know you've done wrong. The positive thing about sin guilt is you actually have a guilty feeling about sin. It's good that you have sin guilt. Sin guilt is a positive. You need to have this guilty feeling about potential sin or sin that you have committed, or if you're numb, you have moved to a place where you have become insensitive to conviction. You became insensitive to his spirit or his ruach. And so now you have this characteristic, what we call seared. Now, seared or cauterized is a status of heart where you are not as sensitive to the Father's voice. This is because you never repented or turned back away from the thing that caused the sin guilt in the first place. So it's a positive thing that you're getting sin guilt, because now you know that Father's dealing with you. You know that you still have conviction in your heart. You know that you still have conviction in your spirit about doing things wrong. But you got to stop doing those things that are wrong, because if you keep doing those things that are wrong, you'll lose that sensitivity. You deserve everything you get for that guilty feeling. You deserve every penalty that you get. Hebrews 10:28 says that he that despises Moses' law dies without mercy under the witness of two or three people. And so when you transgress the Torah, you don't get mercy. You get exactly what you deserve. You're guilty because you know you've done wrong. Your conscience has told you you've done wrong. Your spirit has told you you've done wrong. And so it's positive that you have this wrong feeling, but you need to turn this thing around. You need to repent. So since you had this feeling of sin guilt, it means that you have a knowledge of sin. Now, this is something that we teach pretty common at the HOIO Contact, Ohio. You have 3 levels of sin. You have sin, transgression, and iniquity. Now, when you sin, that's missing the mark. Father gives us an atonement or covering. Transgression is when you know it's wrong, but you do it anyways. Father offers no covering for transgression. This is found in Hebrews chapter 10 and Numbers chapter 15. There is no covering for willful sin. And then, of course, you have iniquity, which is once those transgressions have been repeated, they become a part of your character, a part of your blood, and you are lawless now. So, since you have a knowledge of sin, it's no longer just sin, oops, I messed up, I missed the mark, cover me. It is now, because you got that sin guilt feeling. Remember, I feel guilty. You feel guilty because you know you've done wrong. And so it's no longer just sin, it's now transgression. And so maybe the phrase shouldn't be sin guilt, but transgression guilt. Here's a little piece on transgression. Let me just give you a quick little nugget on transgression to kind of encourage you to flee from sin and flee from that guilty feeling of sin. Transgression offers no escape from the judgment. You will get what you deserve when you transgress or do those sins or do those things that cause sin guilt. But that's sin guilt. That's understanding sin guilt. And so if you have that guilty feeling, you should, because you're doing something wrong. The sad thing is, in today's society, they tell young boys that when you do things in your room and no one's listening and you feel guilty about doing it and everyone's watching and you're doing it on your blanket and you're, oh, don't feel bad, it's not shameful. It is. That's why you feel guilty. And then you constantly do it until you become numb to it, and it's no longer, you don't no longer feel guilty about it, it becomes popular. There's a lot of things that we have accepted in our society because it became popular, part of the culture, but originally we felt guilty about it. We feel disgusted by it. But that's why Hasatan tries to infiltrate your mind, infiltrate your house, infiltrate your home, infiltrate your communities, infiltrate your children, so that you can become desensitized to the sin. And that way you don't have any more sin guilt, or should I say, transgression guilt. If you want to know more about sin guilt, I do an intense study on sins, transgressions, and iniquities. I think it might be under our spiritual development classes, available on houseisohio.com. And they are not online. You have to come to the location. I'm Hoshea, and I'm out.